When we talk about history, we often think of things that have been lost to time. We imagine sunken ships, ruined castles, or forgotten documents. But what about money? Coins, those small metal discs we use every day, can also disappear from history. This doesn't simply mean they're old or out of use. A disappeared coin is one that has been systematically removed from existence. It might be because a government decided to melt them all down, or perhaps a new currency was introduced, making the old ones worthless overnight. These coins don't just fade away. They are actively erased from circulation. The process of making a coin disappear can happen in several ways. The most dramatic method is a government recall. A king, queen, or modern government might issue a decree stating that all old coins must be returned by a certain date. After that deadline, the coins are no longer considered legal tender, meaning they can't be used to buy anything. They become nothing more than pieces of metal. These collected coins are then often melted down. The valuable silver, gold, or copper is then used to create brand new coins for the new era. This practice was incredibly common throughout history, especially during times of economic reform or when a new ruler wanted to make their mark. Another way coins vanish is through simple attrition and loss over centuries. People bury their savings for safety and then forget where they put them, or they die without telling anyone. Shipwrecks have sent countless chests of coins to the bottom of the sea. Coins get dropped in fields, worn down until they are unrecognizable, or repurposed into jewelry. Over hundreds of years, these individual losses add up. Millions upon millions of coins, once the lifeblood of an economy, simply vanish from the world of the living. For historians and archaeologists, finding a single one of these lost coins can be like finding a key to a forgotten story, a tangible link to a past we can no longer see. So, when we explore the lost coins of Sweden, we are not just looking at antiques. We are uncovering stories of deliberate destruction, economic upheaval, and the quiet, steady march of time that erases the everyday objects of our ancestors. Each vanished coin represents a decision made by a powerful ruler, a shift in the country's fortunes, or a simple, personal story of loss. It is a fascinating journey that reveals how a nation's identity and economy were forged, one metal disc at a time. This is the story of money that was made to disappear, leaving behind only echoes and a few rare survivors for us to study today. Sweden's journey into the world of coinage begins around the year 995 CE, with a Viking king named Olof Skötkonung. Before him, there was no official Swedish money. King Olof was a pivotal figure. He was the first Christian king of Sweden, and he wanted to modernize his kingdom. Part of that modernization involved creating a unified currency. He established the first Swedish mint in the town of Sigtuna, which was a bustling trading hub at the time. The coins he produced were silver pennies known as penningar. These were not just pieces of silver, they were powerful symbols of royal authority. Each coin was stamped with the king's image or name, a clear declaration that Sweden was a unified kingdom under his rule. These early coins were heavily inspired by the English pennies of the time. This was no accident. The Vikings had extensive contact with England through trade and raids, and English silver coins were highly valued and well known throughout the Viking world. Olof Skötkonung even hired English moneyers, skilled craftsmen who knew how to design and strike coins, to help set up his mint in Sigtuna. As a result, his first coins look remarkably similar to those of the English king Ethelred the Unready. They featured a portrait of the king on one side and a cross on the other. This design was not just for show. It was a mark of quality and a familiar sight for international traders. Despite this ambitious start, King Olof's coins did not last. They were minted for only a few decades, and then they completely disappeared from circulation for nearly 150 years. Why did they vanish? The primary reason was a lack of domestic silver. Sweden did not have its own silver mines at this time, so all the metal for the coins had to be imported or acquired through trade and tribute. Once the supply of foreign silver dried up, minting simply stopped. The political situation in Sweden also became more fragmented after Olof's reign, and the central authority needed to maintain a national currency weakened considerably. The first Swedish experiment with coinage had failed. The disappearance of Olof's pennies was so complete that for a long time, historians weren't even sure they had existed. It was only through archaeology, with the discovery of these rare coins in hoards and at the site of Sigtuna, that their story was pieced back together. The few surviving examples are now incredibly valuable treasures. They represent a brief, shining moment when Sweden first stepped onto the European stage as a modern kingdom, before sliding back into a cashless economy. They are ghosts of a forgotten ambition, a testament to a king who was perhaps a little too far ahead of his time. These coins were lost not just to time, but to economic reality. Before King Olof Skötkonung tried to introduce a Swedish currency, the people of the Viking Age had a very different relationship with money. They didn't use coins in the way we do today, as standardized units of value for buying everyday goods. Instead, their economy ran on silver. This was the era of what historians call a bullion economy, where the value of a payment was based purely on the weight and purity of the metal itself, not on the face stamped on it. This silver came in many forms: jewelry, like arm rings and necklaces, ingots, and most importantly, foreign coins. These items weren't spent, they were weighed. Traders and wealthy individuals would carry small, portable scales with them everywhere. When a transaction was made, the agreed-upon price was a certain weight of silver. To pay, a person might take a silver arm ring and chop a piece off it. This is why archaeologists often find fragments of jewelry and coins, a practice that has given them the name hack silver or hack silver. The origin of the coin didn't matter. A silver dirham from the Abbasid Caliphate in the Middle East was just as good as a penny from England or a denier from the Frankish Empire. All that mattered was its weight and purity. This system worked well for a society of international traders and raiders like the Vikings. This reliance on foreign silver led to the creation of thousands of silver hoards. People would bury their wealth for safekeeping. In a violent and uncertain world without banks, burying your treasure was the safest option. These hoards contained a dazzling mix of international silver. A single Viking hoard, found in Sweden, might contain coins from Baghdad, Samarkand, and Byzantium, alongside silver from England, Germany, and France. These hoards are like a map of the Vikings' incredible global network. They tell a story of long-distance trade routes that stretched from the rivers of Russia down to the Black Sea and the markets of the Islamic world. When King Olof minted his first Swedish coins, he was trying to change this entire system. He wanted to move from a bullion economy, where silver was weighed, to a coin-based economy, where coins were counted. This was a radical idea for the time. It meant that people had to trust that the king's stamp guaranteed the coin's value, regardless of its exact weight. As we know, this first attempt failed. The old habits died hard, and the international flow of hack silver continued to be the main form of wealth in Sweden for another century and a half. The age of hoards wasn't over yet, and the idea of a truly Swedish currency would have to wait. After the long silence that followed King Olof's first coins, Sweden finally began minting its own currency again in the middle of the 12th century. This time, it stuck. The system that emerged during the medieval period was complex and based on three main units of account: the penning, the örtug, and the mark. The penning was the smallest and was, for a long time, the only coin that was actually minted. The örtug and the mark were initially just units of calculation used for larger sums. For example, a contract might state a price in marks, but the payment would be made using hundreds of individual penning coins. This system was common across medieval Europe. The penning itself was a small silver coin, but its value and silver content changed constantly. Kings and regents would often engage in what was called debasement. This meant they would secretly reduce the amount of silver in each new batch of coins, mixing it with cheaper metals like copper. This allowed them to mint more coins from the same amount of silver, effectively creating money out of thin air to pay for wars or other expenses. As a result, people lost trust in the currency. Older coins, with more silver, were hoarded and melted down, while the newer, poorer quality coins were the only ones left in circulation. This process, known as Gresham's law, bad money drives out good, caused many generations of penningar to disappear. Eventually, the value of the penning had fallen so much that a larger coin was needed. Around the 1370s, the urtug was introduced as an actual silver coin, worth 8 penningar. This was a much more substantial and reliable coin, and it quickly became the workhorse of the Swedish economy for the next 200 years. It was used for everything from paying taxes to buying property. The mark, which was worth 24 urtugar, remained a unit of account for a while longer. But it too was eventually minted as a large, impressive silver coin. For a time, this trio of coins provided a stable foundation for Sweden's economy. However, just like the penning before them, the urtug and the mark also fell victim to debasement and reform. Wars, particularly the long struggle for independence from the Danish-led Kalmar Union in the 15th and 16th centuries, were incredibly expensive. Successive rulers melted down old coins to create new, less valuable ones to fund their armies. Each time a major reform happened, the old coins were declared invalid and were systematically recalled and destroyed. This is why finding well-preserved medieval Swedish coins is so difficult today. They were not simply lost. They were officially hunted down and melted, their silver reborn into the currency of a new king. In the 17th century, Sweden found itself in a rather peculiar situation. It had become a major European power, the Swedish Empire, with a large army fighting in wars across the continent. But there was a problem. Sweden was poor in silver and rich in copper. In fact, the Great Copper Mountain in Falun produced about 2/3 of all the copper in Europe. So, the Swedish government came up with a radical and honestly, pretty unique solution to its money problems. In 1644, they decided to create a currency based on copper instead of silver. Because copper was worth so much less than silver, the coins had to be absolutely enormous to have any real value. This was the birth of plot mint, or plate money. These were not coins in the traditional sense at all. They were huge rectangular plates of raw copper, some weighing nearly 20 kilograms. The largest of these, the $10 plate, is actually the heaviest coin ever officially created in world history. Each plate had 5 stamps impressed on it, one in each corner and one in the center. These stamps guaranteed its weight and value, just like the stamp on a silver coin. Just imagine, for a moment, having to carry your money around on a horse-drawn cart. These copper plates were incredibly impractical for everyday use, but they did serve a purpose. They allowed Sweden to turn its biggest natural resource directly into money and fund its imperial ambitions. For several decades, these copper giants were the backbone of the Swedish financial system, circulating alongside smaller silver and copper coins. They were primarily used for large transactions, like buying land or paying major commercial debts. Their sheer size and weight made them difficult to steal and, well, pretty easy to count in large quantities. The government controlled the copper mine in Falun, which meant it had a monopoly on the production of its own currency. This was a powerful tool. However, the system was entirely dependent on the international price of copper. If the value of copper fell on the world market, the value of Sweden's money fell with it. And that is exactly what happened. The value of copper began to fluctuate wildly, and the plate money system became unstable. Furthermore, the plates were incredibly cumbersome. In 1715, a new crisis led the government to issue tokens of necessity, which were small copper coins with no real value, meant to be exchanged for plate money later. This created financial chaos. Eventually, the government decided to abandon the plate money experiment altogether. In the 1770s, a major currency reform was enacted. All the copper plates were recalled, declared invalid, and melted down. Their disappearance was swift and total. An entire, unique form of currency was wiped from existence, leaving behind only a few surviving specimens in museums as a testament to one of history's strangest monetary experiments. Section 6. From Daler to Krona. A new monetary dawn. For centuries, the main currency unit in Sweden was the daler. The name, like the dollar, comes from the German thaler, a large silver coin first minted in the 16th century. The Swedish daler had a turbulent history. There were different types, such as the daler silver mint or silver money, and the daler kopparmynt or copper money, and their exchange rates fluctuated wildly. This created a complicated and often confusing financial system. By the 19th century, this system was consolidated into a single currency called the riksdaler. The riksdaler was the direct predecessor to the money Sweden uses today, and it brought a much-needed period of stability to the nation's economy. The mid-19th century was a time of great change across Europe. Nations were industrializing, railways were connecting cities, and international trade was booming. Many countries felt the need to modernize their old complex currency systems. A new idea was gaining popularity: a monetary union based on the gold standard. This meant that the value of a country's currency would be fixed to a specific amount of gold. In 1873, Sweden decided to join this modern trend. Together with Denmark, it formed the Scandinavian Monetary Union. As part of this monumental reform, Sweden abandoned the old riksdaler system completely. A brand new currency was born: the krona. The introduction of the krona, which means crown, was a complete reset of the Swedish monetary system. The exchange rate was set so that one riksdaler was exchanged for one krona. The new krona was divided into 100 öre. This was a decimal system, which was much simpler and more logical than the old system of the riksdaler, which was divided into 48 skilling. All the old riksdaler coins and banknotes were declared invalid. Citizens were given a specific period to exchange their old money for the new kroner and öre. After the deadline passed, any remaining riksdaler coins became worthless as legal tender. This was another one of Sweden's great coin disappearances. Millions of riksdaler coins, which had been in circulation for generations, were systematically collected by the state and melted down. The silver was then used for other purposes or sold on the international market. The goal was to create a clean break with the past and align Sweden with its neighbors in a modern, stable, and internationally recognized currency union. The krona was a symbol of this new era of Scandinavian cooperation and economic progress. The daler and the riksdaler, which had been at the heart of Swedish life for over 300 years, vanished almost overnight, replaced by the shiny new krona that would serve Sweden for the next 150 years. Section 7. The slow farewell of the öre. When the krona was introduced in 1873, it was divided into 100 öre. A whole family of öre coins was created to handle small, everyday transactions. There were bronze 1, 2, and 5 öre coins, and silver, or later, copper nickel, 10, 25, and 50 öre coins. For nearly a century, these coins were an essential part of daily life in Sweden. You could buy sweets, a newspaper, or a tram ticket with just a few öre. They were the small change that made the economy function smoothly. Generations of Swedes grew up with the familiar feel and weight of these coins in their pockets. They were as much a part of the Swedish landscape as pine forests and red-painted cottages. However, over the course of the 20th century, a familiar enemy began to attack: the öre, inflation. Slowly but surely, the value of the krona decreased, and the purchasing power of the tiny öre coins fell with it. What once cost 5 öre might now cost 50, and later, a whole krona. The smallest denomination coins, the 1 and 2 öre, became practically worthless. The cost of producing them, the metal, the minting process, the distribution, was actually more than their face value. They were becoming a nuisance rather than a convenience. So, in 1971, the government decided it was time for them to go. The 1 and 2 öre coins were abolished and withdrawn from circulation. This was the beginning of the end for the öre. The 5 and 25 öre coins followed the same path, being abolished in 1984 and 1991, respectively. Each time a coin was removed, a period was set for the public to return them to banks. After that, they were no longer valid. By the 21st century, only the 50 öre coin remained. But its days were also numbered. Inflation continued to make it less and less useful. Businesses started rounding prices to the nearest whole krona to avoid dealing with the small coins. Finally, in 2010, the Swedish Riksbank made the final decision. The 50 öre coin, the last survivor of the original öre family, was to be abolished. The disappearance of the öre was different from the great reforms of the past. It wasn't a sudden, dramatic change, but a slow, gradual phasing out over 4 decades. It was a quiet death, driven by the simple economic reality of inflation. Billions of coins were collected and melted down. With the abolition of the 50 öre piece, an era in Swedish history ended. For the first time in 137 years, the krona was no longer divisible into smaller coin units in practice. All prices in shops are now rounded to the nearest krona. The öre now exists only as an electronic unit in digital payments, a ghost in the machine of the modern economy. Section 8. The Great Krona Switch. Invalidating an entire coinage. Even the modern krona, which seemed so permanent, has not been immune to the Swedish tradition of making coins disappear. In the 21st century, the Swedish Riksbank decided that the country's coins were due for another major overhaul. The reasons were practical. The old coins contained nickel, which can cause allergic reactions. They were also relatively heavy, and new production methods could create smaller, lighter, and cheaper coins. Furthermore, the old 10 krona coin was being counterfeited. So a new design with better security features was needed. The decision was made to replace almost the entire set of coins in circulation. Between 2016 and 2017, Sweden underwent the Great Coin and Banknote Switch. A brand new series of coins was introduced. A new 1 krona, a new 2 krona, a denomination that had not been used for decades, and a new 5 krona coin. The 10 krona coin was also updated. These new coins were smaller, lighter, and made from different alloys. The most significant part of this reform was what happened to the old coins. The government announced a deadline. After the 30th of June 2017, the old 1 krona, 2 krona, and 5 krona coins would become invalid. This meant that billions of coins held in piggy banks, jars, and wallets across the country would become worthless overnight. The public was urged to spend their old coins or deposit them at a bank before the deadline. The campaign was extensive, with advertisements on television, in newspapers, and online. It was a race against time for many people to gather up their loose change. After the deadline passed, the old coins were officially demonetized. They were no longer legal tender. You could not use them in a shop, in a vending machine, or anywhere else. Their only value was their scrap metal content. This was a classic example of a government-led disappearance, executed with modern efficiency. An entire generation of coinage was wiped from circulation in a single decisive move. The only krona coin to survive this purge was the old 10 krona coin, but even its days were numbered as the new version became more common. The result of this reform was the destruction of an enormous number of coins. It is estimated that billions of kroner in old coins were never returned. They remain lost in people's homes, forgotten in drawers, or were simply thrown away. For coin collectors, this event was significant. While the coins were not rare before the reform, they instantly became historical artifacts, relics of a recent but now bygone era. The Great Krona Switch of 2017 is a powerful modern reminder of how quickly money can be made to vanish. Section 9. A Kingdom of Ghosts, the Legacy of Lost Swedish Coins. The history of Sweden's currency is a history of repeated disappearances. From King Olof's first pennies to the modern krona coins of the 21st century, rulers and governments have consistently chosen to wipe the slate clean. These reforms were not gentle transitions, they were often brutal and swift. Decrees were issued, deadlines were set, and entire circulating coinages were declared worthless. This policy of demonetization and melting down old currency is a defining feature of Swedish numismatic history. It was a tool used by medieval kings to finance wars, by 18th century reformers to stabilize a chaotic economy, and by modern central bankers to improve efficiency and security. The impact of these reforms has been profound. They have made many historical Swedish coins exceptionally rare. The coins that are almost extinct today are often the ones that were targeted most aggressively by these recalls. King Olof Skötkonung's pennies are a prime example. So few survived the 150-year gap in minting that they are considered national treasures. The gigantic copper plate money, systematically melted down in the 1770s, is another. Finding a complete, well-preserved plate is the dream of any museum. Even coins from the 19th century Riksdaler system are scarcer than one might expect, as they were diligently exchanged for the new kroner in 1873. Each reform created a new generation of numismatic ghosts. This long history of disappearing coins has led to a fascinating situation in modern Sweden. The country is now one of the most cashless societies in the world. The use of physical money has plummeted. Most transactions are done digitally with cards or mobile phone apps. Cash is used in less than 10% of all payments in Sweden today. The Great Coin Switch of 2017 was, in some ways, a final step in this journey. After centuries of minting, recalling, and melting coins, Sweden is now moving towards a future where physical coins may have almost no role at all. The few coins that remain in circulation are the new, lighter 1, 2, 5, and 10 kroner pieces. Looking back, the story of Sweden's lost coins is a microcosm of its national history. It is a story of Viking ambition, medieval power struggles, imperial grandeur, and modern pragmatism. The empty spaces in a coin collector's album where the vanished urtugar, dollars, and öre should be tell a powerful story of destruction and renewal. As Sweden edges closer to becoming a truly cashless kingdom, it marks the final chapter in this long saga. The ultimate disappearance of the coin may be the most significant of all, turning all physical money into a relic of a bygone age, a tangible ghost of how we once lived.